Hello, you are listening to The Brutally Honest with Cademan. This is a special Valentine's Day episode with two good friends of mine, Michael and Bailey. I hope you enjoy.
Your guts.
Michael Bailey! Hi!
Hi.
So, how are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah.
Okay, cool. First off, congratulations on engagement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's exciting. But anyway, without too much further, I don't know. We can go ahead and start talking about stuff. So, the first thing I want to talk about, the main thing I want to talk about, is kind of at what point should you pursue a romantic relationship? And that's
Honestly, I was thinking about this yesterday. And, people I hear just, generally are usually very opinionated on this. You'll hear them talking about one person or another. They're too young to date, they're too young to get married, this, that. Honestly, I don't think it matters as much as people make it seem. Because, I know some people who didn't get married until they were 40. I know some people who got married when they were 18, 19, 20. I know some people who dated from the time that they were 14 and then they got married after high school. And my grandma got married at 16. And if when you pursued a romantic relationship mattered as much as people seem to think it does, at least some of those people would not have had good marriages.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense to me, that I think, maybe it just doesn't matter a lot. I think a lot more than, and I should clarify, I've never been in any sort of a relationship, so this might actually end up be a lot more of me asking questions and less conversation than normal. I'm not sure, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, to me, it seems like maybe it would be more of a wisdom thing than kind of more of a physical thing than an actual this age your relationship will fall apart. It's more of I guess less about maturity and more about thinking about how much could you provide, if that makes sense.
What I think you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
and what I think is that it's less about just physical maturity and more about your emotional and mental maturity,
Right.
so to speak.
Well, I guess there's that element, but it's also, I guess that's another thing we can get into, is, kind of at what point is the mental maturity? Because, that's a question I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about, is, people say, oh, don't get in a relationship till you're mature enough to handle it, but people rarely say what that is.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's also an element of a 13-year-old kid without a job isn't really going to be able to provide for a girl. So
he's not really in the position to be looking for.
Yeah. And part of that could just be my kind of cynical mind of everything that could go wrong will go wrong, you know? Where it's
yeah,
moving too fast and stuff is something I worry about doing.
Yeah, and dating and being in relationships younger definitely has more temptations in certain areas, just because, like, if you're 18, 19, you can get married,
right,
but if you're 13, 14, 15, whatever, you have to wait 4 or 5 years until you can actually get married.
right.
And so you have all those years of dealing with temptations that provide a greater element of risk and a greater chance of screwing it up.
Right.
But as far as like when the emotional maturity and everything like arrives, like, I know I was in a relationship with a gal a couple years ago, and at that time I was not emotionally mature enough to be in a relationship. And like, I can look back and I can see that now, that I was not emotionally mature enough. But it's because I was in that relationship and the experiences that I had in that relationship that made me grow and become emotionally mature enough.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's really, really hard. And I think it depends on the people involved and just a whole host of factors. I don't think there's any one system that would work.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of the interesting thing is like, when talking about, romance or whatever, it's like there's so many different like things to consider that you can't possibly consider. It's like, oh, well, how do you know if you actually like love someone or something? That's hard to say because there's a lot of different forms of love.
Right.
And like they usually come in like pairs. Like you usually don't just love someone in one way.
That's true.
But so it's like, it's kind of hard to exactly say, oh, this is like the person that you should be with because you love them,
It's true.
But yeah, no, to go back to what you were saying about being in a relationship bringing you the maturity that you need to be in a relationship, it's kind of interesting because last time on this podcast with Destry, which, by the way, when it comes out, you guys should both listen to it because it by far my favorite episode so far. But we were talking about kind of order versus chaos, and kind of like the idea of how much does God control your life and how much are you just free to do whatever, and can you mess up God's plan? And it's one of the things that we talked about was that making mistakes, God uses our mistakes to teach us or to like be able to show people not to make the mistakes, or there's many numbers of things that God could use our mistakes for. But it's kind of the thing where it's like, oh, when you mess up and do something wrong, then like you're really still winning in the end because God is still able to do that. Even though at the time it may seem like you lost.
That's
right.
true.
Like oftentimes something greater, I think, tends to come from that.
Yeah. And I think, like, for me, one of the things that I see lacking in a lot of people as they go into a relationship is, you brought up like love. Like, I see like a lot of a lack of like a proper conception of like what love is.
Sure.
A lot of people I've talked to have this idea that it's an emotion, it's a feeling, it's the way you feel around someone.
Right.
And I mean, that's a part of it, but that's not the most important part, really.
If love was based purely on feeling, then as you grow older, as like a married couple or whatever, the feeling is gonna fade, not be as exciting as it was. And if it was based purely on feeling and there was no commitment, it would get boring, really.
Right, yeah.
But the commitment to each other is what drives the feeling to continue.
Right, that makes sense. And like, I've been around enough married people to know that married people don't always like each other.
No.
So
right.
I've heard a lot, like, I don't like you, but I love you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. I've heard that too.
But it is like, you know, I think movies don't help at all. But where it's like, you know, like the shiny, sparkly chick flick feeling,
Right.
where it's like, oh yeah, we're in love because I like him.
Right.
And it's like, you know, that's then go away. So if that's all that you're there for,
then when it goes away, so do you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but from that begs the question: if it's not the sparkly feeling, then what do you like pursue romantic relationships off of?
Well, I think the sparkly feeling is a part of it because that's what draws you to that person.
Right.
But then you also learn more about who they really are and their attributes and what they believe, and that's what really drives the true love, I would say.
Right.
Right. Like, a lot of people like to compare like love to like a fire. You know, and if that's the case, then that sparkly feeling is, you know, the match that starts the fire.
Right.
And you know, a lot of times when you start a fire, it'll burst into flame and blaze really bright. But if you're not careful, it'll die out really fast.
Right.
And so that's where, you know, commitment and caring for it and taking care of it allows it to continue to grow and even, you know, nearly completely die down, but then something throws a stick on it and it bursts into flames again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's interesting. But it's like I said earlier on, there's also, I think, once again, I don't know, like, by no stretch of the imagination am I a relationships expert. I mean, I like to joke that I am, but I'm not. But like, you know, there's lots of different forms of love, and like a lot of them come together. So it's like, but I think from what I noticed about like just relationships that instinctively kind of bug me, I guess, is just a lack of, I guess, respect for the other person. Like, not that they're particularly rude to them or anything, but just like you know, like, they're less about their thing and like trying to pull the other person into their thing,
right?
You know, but and like a lot of that could be more of a male thing. I'm not sure. Like, males tend to talk to me about relationships more than females do, for obvious reasons. I mean, I'm a male.
No, really?
Yeah. Oh, that's awkward. After how many years of being friends?
I don't know. Like, are we talking like Blanchard days or?
Well, we weren't really that good of friends back then, I would say. It wasn't till like, I remember one time because, for the listeners, I was friends with Michael's brother for a long time. And then from there, I remember kind of one day when I went to your house, and then I kind of started hanging out with you after that.
Yeah, but that was probably, what, 4 or 5 years ago?
A long time at this point.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah. I don't even really remember.
I feel like there's a couple conversations that would have been really weird if I was not a male that we had. Like, just looking back. Anyway. Bailey has a face like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the sayings I've always liked was love is a verb, not an emotion.
Mm.
And the other day I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about, like, how do you prove that to someone?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized you can prove it just by using love in a sentence. Okay, so Caitlin, give me an emotion, just a general emotion.
Anger.
Okay. So I am angry. Okay.
I'm sorry, what did I
do? Now let's put in love, right?
Okay.
I am love. That doesn't work.
No, I mean, unless you're God.
Very, very true, but it doesn't work.
Right.
In normal English, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, how about this? You eat a hamburger.
Okay.
You love a hamburger.
I do love a hamburger.
Okay. Eat is a verb.
Right.
And love just drops right in there.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Now, you angry a hamburger.
Right.
That doesn't work.
Yeah. No, it would be a hamburger.
That's when
you
eat a hamburger very aggressively.
Which is a verb. Mm-hmm. Makes you feel angry.
Right.
And so, yeah, love is a verb. It's how you act towards someone regardless of how you're feeling.
Right.
DC Talk has a song called Love is a Verb. For those people who know who DC Talk is.
I love DC Talk. I don't know I've heard that song, though.
Yeah.
And I lost my train of thought.
I do that a lot, where, like, I realize there's, like, you know, like, I'm writing a podcast, so I'm like, oh, I have to keep it going, so I don't have time to fully process the next thing that I'm gonna say. So I just, like, lose my train of thought in the middle of the sentence. I was like, no, wait, I had a thought. I think it was pretty good, but I don't know where it is now.
Yeah.
Just tell your listeners you had good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of escaped you.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of derailing going on.
Yeah, well, that's what happens.
Yeah.
That's why usually, like beforehand, I was saying I usually have like a couple topics, but I only actually need to use one, because we'll just talk about that, and then it will lead to something else that will lead to something else, and then, like, sometimes, last time I believe, like 5 topics probably from my list of topics that I generally let people choose from. This one I didn't do that because it's a special Valentine's Day episode, so I kind of picked, but I got like 5 of them just happened to wrap into conversation. And then yeah, it was fun. I hope you enjoyed the first part of the special Valentine's Day episode. I really enjoyed this one, but yeah, listen to the next episode. It has more of our conversation.